Hello everyone, and welcome to the Aspen Web ePOC webinar for providers. We're happy to have this opportunity to demonstrate for you the electronic plan correction system and show you how that system can help streamline the POC process, the plan of correction process between providers and the state agency and regional office. First of all, let me give you a sense of what exactly ePOC encompasses in terms of the POC process. The slide that you see in front of you shows the basic ePOC process flow. At the beginning, the first step is that, just as happens today, the state agency or CMS regional office will at some point decide that the statement of deficiencies, the SOD, for a survey is ready to send to the provider. At that point, today, the state agency or regional office would put this statement of deficiencies, or 2567, into an envelope and mail it and await back the hard copy version of the plan of correction from the provider. Given ePOC, that first step has been automated. As soon as the state agency or regional office decides to do so, within the system, they will be able to electronically post that survey to the electronic plan of correction website. It's the Aspen Web electronic plan of correction website. As soon as that occurs, if you notice, there will be an email that the system automatically generates to facility users to let them know that that facility, or that survey, I should say, has been posted. Once the facility then logs into the Aspen Web ePOC system, they will be able to, for each citation, for each tag on the survey, they will be able to respond to that deficiency, entering the plan of correction information for each of the tags. When ready, providers can submit to the state agency or regional office their plan of correction for the tag. An email, you'll notice, the system will automatically notify the facility and state agency that this plan of correction for a tag has been submitted, and at that point, the state agency, just as they do today, will decide, will they approve or reject the plan of correction that's been submitted for a tag. Notice if they reject it, the system will automatically generate an email, and we'll have a chance later today to look at those emails. But the system would let the facility know that the plan of correction for a particular tag has been rejected, and then the facility could revise their plan of correction information and resubmit to the state agency or regional office. If the state agency or regional office approves the plan of correction, that other pathway notice, and automatically the system will generate an approval email to the facility to let you know that the plan of correction for a particular tag has been approved. And once all tags on that survey have approved plan of correction information, then ePOC will automatically generate for you a final approval email, and we'll take a look at a sample of that later on. So that's the basic process that ePOC encompasses, and again, with the automatic email notifications between the state agency and the facility, we're hoping that the whole process will be streamlined and simplified for you. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some more of the specifics of how ePOC works. First of all, note that for providers, the Aspen Web ePOC application is accessible via the CMS net. A login through the CMS net is required into KEYS, the QIES system. Therefore, providers will need to have an active KEYS account set up, log in to that to access ePOC. For information on enrollment of provider users of ePOC, please go to the QTSO website, and you can see the link here in this slide, https://www.qtso.com/cmsnet.html. Signing up to be enrolled in the ePOC application is the first step and necessary step for provider users to access the electronic plan of correction system. With that in mind, let's go ahead and actually look at the Aspen Web ePOC application. As you can see, I've opened up another window, and in this window, you'll note that the Aspen Web application, ePOC application, has opened. I'm going to change the size a little bit here so it may fit a little bit better in your screen. Notice that I am at the very beginning page of the ePOC system. I'm on a facility list. And on this facility list, you'll see basic information describing the facilities that I, as a user, am associated with. Now, some provider users may be associated with only a single facility. In that case, this facility list will not appear. They will bypass it, and instead, that user would just immediately go to the next screen that we're going to look at in just a minute, the survey list. But in this case, I'm logged in as a user associated with multiple facilities. And so I'm seeing a list of facilities. And at this point, I would choose whichever facility I need to work with. If we think about a common scenario for a plan of correction process, perhaps the state agency has gone in and posted a survey and along with its statement of deficiencies and perhaps a letter. And I, as a provider user, just received an email to let me know that that survey has been posted. I go ahead and I log in using my keys, login and password, and I open up the ePOC system. And the very first thing I'll want to do then is to find that newly posted survey. In this case, we'll pretend that I've just received a posted survey email for Black Hawk Life Care Center. So to select that facility, all I need to do is click on or select the CCN number for that particular facility, and that's going to open up for that particular facility a list of surveys. Notice that the only surveys that will appear in this list are surveys which the state agency has posted for ePOC display. So depending on how long your facility has been open, you may have quite a large number of surveys, but be aware that only surveys that the state agency has chosen to post for you on the electronic plan of correction system will be available from within this survey list. Notice that survey information, very basic descriptive information shows for each survey. Let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing. In this case, we're seeing 19 different surveys for Black Hawk Life Care Center. The most recent surveys appear at the top of the list, with the older ones cascading down within the list. We see in the first column a unique identifier for each survey. That's the event ID. We also see the SOD, or Statement of Deficiencies, sent date. In the next column, the exit date from the survey. When was the exit date? The type of survey, and that will either display health if the survey was a health focus, or life safety code if the survey was a life safety code type of survey. Other information about the survey that displays is the status of that survey within ePOC. Is it open or closed? The category of the survey, what type of survey was this? And you can see that the actual code of that category displays, but a handy little help button, if you hover over that, will display the actual category type definitions. Additional information that we see about the survey is some very useful information when you as a provider user opens up ePOC and goes to this survey list. You can very quickly at a glance, by looking at these next three columns, identify the status of that survey, whether or not there's any action on your part required for that particular survey. The number of deficiencies column fairly self-explanatory, tells you how many deficiencies were cited during that survey, submitted, how many of those deficiencies actually have plan of correction information that you submitted to the state agency. The next column shows approved, the number of approved and the number of unapproved plan of corrections for those tags. So in this case, we can see that for this survey there were a total of 8 deficiencies, one of which has already been approved plan of correction information, and 7 of which do not yet. So that may require some of our attention. POC due date automatically displays, so you know the date by which you need to have that plan of correction back to the state agency. And then 2 other handy columns are available, the letters column and the attachments column. And the letters column, when the state agency posts a survey, they optionally may also post letter information for that survey. So using that letters icon, you can drill down and actually open the statement of deficiency information letter by clicking on the icon, then actually selecting the letter date, and then whatever viewer you have for text on your machine will allow you to actually view the letter that the state agency or regional office has provided for you. So that's a quick way to access letter information for a particular survey. The attachments column, this is a place where as you're working your plan of correction information, putting in your plan of correction information, as a provider you do have the ability to attach documents. We'll take a look at how you actually can do that a little bit later, but notice just in this display that if you have attached any documents, those will display, you'll see a count of how many of those attachments you've actually made for a particular survey. Before we drill down further, let's talk a little bit more about some other information, handy tools that are available to you from this Aspen Web ePOC application. First of all, notice that just in terms of navigation across the top of this list, as we go from page to page, notice that there are some breadcrumbs that are available up at the top of the list. If you select a breadcrumb, it's a quick way to navigate back from one screen to another. So I'll point that out more as we move forward into other pages. How you can very quickly move back to prior pages just by clicking on it from within this breadcrumb list. Also on this bar, notice a menu link is available. If I click that menu link, be aware that some features and options are available for you right from here. First of all, instructions. The instructions link allows you to drill down and actually look at provider type specific instructions and information about the plan of correction process and ePOC. Handy tool especially as you're initially starting to use the plan of correction. You also have the capability to use the users button to see a list of all the different users at your facility who have signed up in ePOC to use ePOC. So that's a quick way for you to kind of keep track of who else at your facility has access to the ePOC system. About ePOC, we'll just give you some helpful information about the version of the application. The procedures guide will be a useful tool for you. When you use that link, that will open up a PDF version of a user manual that will be very helpful, especially as you're bringing new staff on to work on plan of corrections within the ePOC application. And then the Aspen Web menu takes you back to the central Aspen Web menu that you may have, and then log out pretty standardly. We'll log you out of the ePOC system and return you back to a main page. So wanted to point those features out to you. But at this point, let's go back into our scenario. If you remember, we went from the list of facilities where we had selected Blackhawk to a list of surveys. In addition to displaying the surveys for this particular facility, Blackhawk in this case, Notice that one of the key features is giving you as a provider access to more detailed information about a particular survey. So in this case, we want to work with this particular survey that was exit date of July 10th, the posted date on ePOC on July 18th, this 89MP11 survey event. So in order to drill down and actually look at the deficiency information, all we need to do is select that unique event ID, and we're moved down into the next page, the survey detail page. For those of you who have worked with the survey reports, the 2567 reports in the past, you'll note that this survey detail page is very similar to it in terms of the type of information that you see in the master list at right here. Basic and tag number information displays in the leftmost column. You can see the tag number. If for nursing homes there's a scope and severity value, that will display underneath the tag number in that first column. In the second column of the display, you'll see the regulation text for the deficiencies that have been cited on the statement of deficiencies, and then a brief excerpt from the actual surveyor evidence, the observations for each of those tags. By clicking on the ellipsis, you can drill down and see the very detailed surveyor evidence for each of the tags right from this survey detail list. But initially, you see just a short excerpt from that. The next column that we want to talk about, this third column, is the plan of correction column. As you enter plan of correction information, that text will display in this plan of correction column. The completion date that you enter, the date by which you plan to have this addressed, that X5 date displays in the far right column, along with the current status of the tag. And we'll talk a little bit more about status of tags in just a bit, along with the status date. So that's the type of information that we're seeing in this deficiency list. We also see on the left-hand side a deficiencies pane or list, and this is a very handy summary display of all the deficiencies that were cited by the state agency or regional office during their survey. You can see, along with the tag number at right, the status of that tag, and you can see as you hover over one of the tags, the definition of what those status values mean automatically display. So handy reminders of what this means. But just just briefly, let's talk about the different status levels or milestones that a tag or deficiency may go through during the plan of correction process. First of all, no POC. When initially posted by the state agency, a tag does not yet have plan of correction information. Therefore, its status is set to no POC. If plan of correction information has been submitted, then the status will be submitted, and we'll see that in just a minute. If plan of correction information for a tag has been submitted and then rejected by the state agency, as you might guess, the status will be rejected. If that plan of correction information for a tag has been approved, status will be approved. And that's all going to display right in this deficiency pane that you see at left, and it also displays within this listing, the master listing, in the far right column. So you have that available for you. Notice that one of our tags does have the little red flag next to it, tag 371. That red flag, what does it mean? Well, if we look at the legend down below, a red flag next to a tag will indicate that this is an IJ or substandard quality of care tag or deficiency that may require more immediate attention on your part as a provider. One of the other nice features of this deficiency pane is that it's a quick link to move around and navigate between the tags. So in this case, this is a fairly long survey. If for some reason I wanted to jump down to look at one of the later tags, tag 431 for example, all I need to do is click on it, select it, and then notice automatically I've been positioned within the list to that particular tag. Tag 431 is right there on the screen for me to very quickly then select. Before we do just that, before we drill down and look at the actual plan of correction entry screen, let's talk a little bit about these buttons that we have at the top here, other features that are available. The back button obviously will allow me to go back to the prior prior page. Of course, we could also do that, if you remember, with our breadcrumbs at the top. By just clicking on survey list, I go back to the prior page, or the home would take me back to the home page. We also have a button here above the list of deficiencies that shows 2567 as the label. By selecting that 2567 button, we'll actually be able to print a 2567 from right here within the ePOC application. We can also print an A form if any of, for nursing homes, if any of the tags are at a status level of A. The A form is available for printing right here from this A form button. And then Submit All Pending allows us to submit a group of tags, plan of correction, to the state agency or regional office for review. We'll go through the use and demonstrate the use of that button in just a little bit. Okay. So this is the survey detail window, and at a high level, again, basic information about the deficiency, access to reports of that statement of deficiencies in the 2567. But it also provides us one key feature, and that's the ability to drill down to the next level and enter plan of correction information. So let's do that. Tag 248, if we look at that tag, notice that its status is no POC, so there's no plan of correction information yet entered for that tag. We need to enter, as a provider, we're responsible to enter that plan of correction information. To do that, we simply highlight and select that tag number in that left-hand column. And that pulls up the plan of correction entry window. On the plan of correction entry window, let's talk a little bit about what we're seeing. First of all, just from an information standpoint, we see identifying information about the survey exit date, posting date, plan of correction due date, and the current status of the tag. We also see the tag number and tag title in the title bar across the top here. We see the observation text for that tag. So for tag 248, this is the observation text, the surveyor evidence. It's on the statement of deficiencies, so we can review that using the scroll bar as needed to scroll down if it's a fairly long text block. And again, that's just read-only. You cannot actually change that information, but you certainly can view it. On the right-hand side, though, within this facility response block, this is the area where the actual plan of correction information can be entered. So notice there's two blocks, the plan of correction description text block, and then a completion date text box. Let's talk about, let's go ahead and pretend that we are actually entering the plan of correction for this tag 248. So after very closely reading the plan of correction, the observation text that the state agency or regional office provided for us, we decide that this is the best plan of correction for tag 248. Notice that we are putting in the plan of correction information just for tag 248. Each plan of correction must be entered separately, at least logged separately on a tag-by-tag basis. We'll talk about submitting it to the state agency in just a minute. That can actually be done as a group. But the actual entry of the plan of correction, you need to open this particular tag, as we've done in this case for 248, and type in the plan of correction information. And we're going to keep that short and sweet. Okay, and so this is for just the plan of correction text for tag 248. At this point then, we'd also say to indicate the date by which we expect to have this plan of correction in place. That completion date would be entered beneath the plan of correction text block. Now notice we have two options available at this point once we've entered the plan of correction information. We can either save as pending, and again, if I hover over a button, I get some guidance as to how that button works, what it does. Notice that if we save a pending version of this, save this plan of correction information as pending, we can always come back at a later time, or maybe our supervisor will come back at a later time and do the final submission. So you can save it as pending, or you have the option to submit that plan of correction immediately to the state agency and the CMS regional office. In this case, let's just go with the shortened route. We'll just submit this plan of correction immediately to the state agency. Notice that when we do that, as soon as there's a submission attempt, you are going to be prompted with an attestation and a summary of exactly what is you are agreeing to in terms of this plan of correction for this particular tag, or if you're submitting for a group of tags, you see a list of a group of tags in this list at the top. You're making an attestation at this point that you're an authorized signer for the plan of correction. This is going to be your e-signature, so to speak, to indicate that you are who you say you are, and that you do have the authority to sign and submit a plan of correction to the state agency. So in order to complete this submission, this attestation page must be completed by selecting the terms, agreeing to the terms of the attestation of POC submittal, and then selecting continue. If you do not do that, you will not be able to, without this attestation, you will not be able to submit the plan of correction to the state agency or regional office. Okay. Down at the bottom, there are some instructions that you may also want to review. Quick reminder to make sure you're familiar and clear on exactly what you're doing as you're submitting this plan of correction and attesting to it via this attestation page. We'll go ahead and select continue. I've checked that checkbox, agreeing to the terms of the attestation, and now I'm going to check continue button. And notice that when we return back to the survey detail window for tag 248, the status has been automatically changed to submitted. At this point, the plan of correction information for tag 248 is in the hands of the state agency. They may choose to accept it and approve the plan of correction, or reject it, as we see has happened with tags 371 and 166 in this particular survey. So that's the process for submitting a tag, by submitting one tag at a time. Let's take a look at how the submission of a tag, or how one would submit multiple tags at the same time to the state agency. So let's go into tag 315, and to do that, I'll use my quick link pane in the left to position to tag 315 on the master list of deficiencies. Select the tag number. Oh, and this is a special case. I'm sorry, let me back up. I'm actually going to go to a different tag number. Okay, so I've opened tag number 329, drug regimen is free from unnecessary drugs is the title. I have the observation text at left again. If I want to read that in detail, I can. But at this point, I can type in the plan of correction information for this particular tag. In this case, I've actually got a text block to save some time with typing. But you could certainly type in as much text as you need to within this POC text area. There's not a limitation as to how much text you can enter. You may also then enter the completion date for that particular plan of correction. Notice that at this point, we want to save this as pending. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Save as Pending button this time. And what that does, notice, is it changes the status immediately to pending. I could continue to type additional POC information here if I so chose, and then save that as, again, if I needed to. But in this case, once I save this as pending, I'm finished with this tag. Maybe I'm going to go out and work on some of the other tags. Notice that I already earlier today worked on tag 431. It's already at a status of pending. So now I have two tags which are pending submission to the state agency or regional office. So rather than going into each one of those and individually submitting it and individually signing and affirming on that attestation page, instead I can use this handy Submit All Pending button that we referenced a little bit ago. by clicking on the Submit All Pending button, what it's going to do is submit to the state agency or regional office any of the tags which are currently at a status of pending, any which already have some pending plan of correction information. So let's go ahead and click that Submit All Pending button. When I do that, notice the attestation page again appears. In this case, I have two tags for which I am attesting to submitting the plan of correction, 329 and 431, so I see both of those listed at the top. I'm going to accept the terms of the attestation. I, Maureen Hartigan, agree to this attestation. And then I'm going to click Continue. And what that's going to do is submit both of those tags. Notice that now if we look at the deficiency pane, the summary view, tag 329 status is submitted, tag 431 status is also submitted to the state agency. So we'll await their response. So that's a quick way to submit a group of tags and only have to complete that attestation page a single time. But individual submission of individual tags is certainly possible and supported, as we saw earlier as well. Let's talk a little bit at this point about an approved tag. And obviously when we submit plan of correction for a tag, we're hoping that the state agency will approve that plan of correction information. For tag 441, in this example, the state agency has approved the plan of correction information. So I just want to point out to you that when that occurs, you still have the ability to click on that tag, select it from the list, and drill down and look at the plan of correction information that you entered. But you no longer have the ability to change it. So no matter how hard you type at this point, that plan of correction description and the completion date are locked for a tag that has already been approved by the state agency. Set in stone at this point. For a rejected tag, the behavior is a little bit different, and let's take a look at how that works. As you may remember from that initial slide, we looked at when the state agency or regional office rejects a tag, the providers will receive an email to let them know that that tag has been rejected. So in this case, tag 371 has been rejected. I received an email to let me know that. I can go into the ePOC system and I can open the information on that tag. So for 371, if we look at the plan of correction information that we entered, actually I'm going to go back to another one. Let's go to tag 166. In this case, for tag 166, the rejection reasons, the reasons that the state agency or regional office rejected that plan of correction display for us right here at our fingertips. Those rejection reasons also appear in the rejection email that you received in your inbox, but once you've logged in, they're also available at your fingertips here on this plan of correction entry window so that you can very quickly see that list, and then in the plan of correction box itself or in the completion date field, you can revise the plan of correction and resubmit it to the state agency. Okay, so if I submit it, again, the attestation page appears. We can accept and continue, and then we've just resubmitted that tag 166. Notice that its status changed from rejected to submitted. Now we're waiting for a response from the state agency or regional office on our revised plan of correction information. So a very quick way to go back and forth between the state agency and providers. Good way to communicate very quickly. That's the basic, so that process that we've just gone over is the basic process that will occur for most of your standard surveys. The last step in many cases will be for you as a provider to use this 2567 button, which is the survey report, to actually generate the survey report for that particular survey. And I just did that, and notice it pulls up the standard 2567 report. Notice the plan, I'm sorry, a POC not final watermark displays across that 2567 report until a point in time when all tags have approved plan of correction information on file. And once all tags have approved plan of correction information, if you print the 2567 report, that POC not final watermark will go away. It will be a nice, crisp, clean copy of that 2567 report that you have can then post on the wall of your facility as needed. A form works very comparably. Again, for nursing homes, if you have a tag which is at a scope and severity of level A, then we can print this A form. And we'll take a look at that in just a second when we talk about special cases. And I think we're ready to talk a bit about special cases. Let's go ahead and talk about one of the special cases would be if a scope and severity level A form has been cited and is then posted on the website for you to review. Notice this tag 356 is at a scope and severity of level A. If I choose that A level tag and pull up the information, notice that I can see, again, I can see the observation text. You can review it. At this point, for A level tags, entry of plan of correction in this facility response area is not permitted. Instead, you receive a note indicating that since this citation has scope severity level A, entry of a POC is not required. All you need to do at this point would be to click this acknowledge button to acknowledge that you have read the observation text that the state agency or regional office provided for you for this particular tag. So if you ever see this facility response with just acknowledge, it very well could be that you have a scope and severity level A tag. And you just need to acknowledge it, and notice that automatically changes the status of that tag to approved. There's no further action required on that scope and severity level A tag. Another special case we wanted to mention is if you receive a statement of deficiencies which has a past noncompliance flag on it. And we have one tag that is set up that way, this tag 315, just so we can demonstrate this to you. When you open a past noncompliance tag, like tag 315, notice it's very similar in terms of behavior as what we saw in a scope and severity level A tag. Again, you have the capability to read the observation text that the state agency and regional office have provided for you. So you can read that observation text, and but under the facility response area, again, you're notified that entry of plan of correction is not required in this case because this is a past noncompliance tag, and all you need to do at this point is acknowledge that you've read that observation for that particular PNC or past noncompliance tag. And by doing so, notice that the status is automatically set for you to approve. There's no further action required for that particular past noncompliance tab. Okay, now one thing to be aware of before we actually go in and show you some examples of the emails is let's go back to the survey list. And let's talk a little bit about the types of surveys that you're going to see in this list. First of all, please be aware that initial surveys, so for new providers, initial surveys will not display in this survey list. Other types of surveys, health surveys, complaint surveys, standard surveys, revisit surveys, all are candidates for display and for processing within the Aspen Web electronic plan of correction system. So be aware that those types of surveys you will see on this list. You may also, one thing to also keep in mind is that each survey event is treated as a distinct and separate event, and its plan of correction is processed very separately. So for example, we've just been working with this July 10th survey, And if you remember, it had quite a few, 8 different tags or deficiencies cited on it. If we jump forward in time and pretend that a revisit has already occurred, and obviously this is a very fast revisit, but notice that there has been a revisit survey performed at our facility, a follow-up survey, on July 18th. And notice that if we open that revisit survey, only the uncorrected tags, if there's during the revisit or the follow-up survey, if there are still any outstanding tags, only those uncorrected or outstanding tags will display. And again, just as we did for the standard survey, for a revisit survey, all we would need to do would be to open the tag, and in this case, looks like tag 248 was still outstanding during the revisit or follow-up survey, so we would need to enter additional or new plan of correction information for this tag 248, along with the completion date, and we would need to submit that to the state agency, just as we did on the standard survey. Okay, so that process is really the same for revisit surveys. We just wanted you to be aware of that distinction. Okay. Okay. So with that in mind, we've talked a little bit about the standard processing of a plan of correction within the ePOC system, and we looked at the slide that showed us very clearly that there are several key stages along the ePOC process. The system will automatically generate emails for us to let the state agency know when the facility completes a piece, and to let you as a facility user know when the state agency completes a certain piece, whether it's a rejection or approval or a final approval. Let's take a look now at some examples of what those emails actually look like. First of all, the survey results posted email. This email will generate all facility users who are enrolled in the ePOC will see this email in their inbox, and notice it just lets you know that the survey has been posted to the ePOC website. As we just looked at, you would then need to log in, go to that survey list, drill down and look at the statement of deficiencies, and enter the plan of correction as needed. Another type of email we want to mention is the survey results reposted email. There may be times when the state agency or regional office revises a survey, perhaps due to an informal dispute resolution, perhaps due to addition of a new tag. For whatever reason, there may be times when the state agency may need to repost a new version of the statement of deficiencies to the website. When that occurs, and if that occurs, and again, it's probably fairly rare, but if it occurs, you as a facility user would receive a survey results reposted email to let you know that the survey has been reposted, and this email will even list the changed tags, so you can be aware of that. At that point, you would want to log, if you receive one of these emails, you will want to log into ePOC, go and look at that survey, and make sure if you have to revise any plan of correction information that you do so and resubmit that revision to the state agency. Another type of email that you may, I'm sorry, this is a continuation of the reposted email. Notice that the list of the changed tags displays within that particular email. Another type of email we wanted to talk about is the facility POC submitted email. At the point in time when you, as a facility user, submit the plan of correction to the state agency or regional office, ePOC will automatically generate this POC submitted type of email to you to let you know that you or some other user at your agency has submitted the plan of correction for a particular tag, and notice the tag number and title display. So you're aware that that has occurred. ePOC will also generate a POC approval email to let you know when the state agency or regional office has approved the plan of correction for a particular tag. POC rejected email, we mentioned earlier, when the state agency or regional office rejects the plan of correction for a particular tag, you would receive this POC rejected email. It will list the reasons for the rejection within the email text itself. You'll want to, at that point, log in and revise your plan of correction as requested and resubmit that back to the state agency. The next email is the Statement of Deficiencies Acknowledgement Required email. This email brings us to another process, another type of survey that you may see within the ePOC system, and that is a deficiency-free survey. Let's talk a little bit back in the ePOC application about a deficiency-free survey. If we look at the first, again, I'm back in the ePOC application and I'm logged in as a Blackhawk Life Care Center facility user. Notice that the very first survey in my list is a deficiency-free survey. And I can very quickly tell that by looking at my survey list. Under the number of deficiencies column, we see 0 deficiencies. Let's go ahead and open that survey and take a look at it. One thing to be aware of is that if the state agency or regional office posts a survey to you on the website that is deficiency-free, there will be some information and initial comments, some types of comments for you to review. And at that point, you just need to look at those observations and read them. And again, you can use the handy ellipsis to pull up. If those observations were longer, you can use the ellipsis to drill down and pull up the entire list of the observations, the entire observations text. Read that. Make sure that you have a grasp of what the state agency has, information that they provided for you. And once you've done that, there's no need to enter plan of correction for a deficiency-free survey, obviously. The only step that is required will be for you to acknowledge that you have seen this statement of deficiencies. And to do that, we just click this handy Acknowledge SOD button. And that's the only action required for that deficiency-free survey. Notice that by doing that, by acknowledging that deficiency-free survey's statement of deficiencies, the status of that survey has automatically been changed to closed. So no further action is required. And if we do that in a timely manner, and by timely I believe the rule is that by the POC due date, as long as we go in and acknowledge that we've seen that deficiency-free survey, then we'll never see, as a provider user, you'll never see this SOD acknowledgement required email. However, if you are a little bit late on getting in and acknowledging that statement of deficiencies, then the ePOC will automatically generate this statement of deficiency acknowledgement required email, and you'll need to go in very quickly and acknowledge that statement of deficiency. The final POC approved email is another email we want to show you, and this email will be automatically generated by ePOC once the last tag has approved plan of correction information. So once the state agency or regional office approves plan of correction for the last remaining tag, then and all tags now have approved plan of correction information, ePOC will notify facility users to let you know that that survey has been completed. Finally, the last email we wanted to talk about is the no response email. In the no response email, again, this is something that hopefully you'll never see at your facility, but you may if there's any, again, it's a timeliness issue. If a survey has been posted by the state agency or regional office and you as a provider have not gone in a timely manner and submitted your plan of correction information, or if there's been a rejection of plan of correction information and you as a provider have not yet gone back in and revised your POC and resubmitted it. Then you may receive one of these no response emails to let you know that you are a little bit late on entering the plan of correction information for the list of citations that you see embedded here within the text of the email. So those emails, we want to give you a sense of the emails that you may start seeing once you start using ePOC actively, and hopefully that helps kind of clarify for you what those emails are going to look like, and you won't be surprised when you start seeing them in your inbox. Now, just to wrap up, we want to talk about and just go over that core process for handling the POC within the Aspen Web ePOC system. 12-step program. The first here is that all ePOC, the first step in handling the POC process for a survey is that all ePOC users for that facility will receive the survey posted email, so you know to log in. Once you've logged in, then the third step is to choose a facility. Again, if you are a user who is associated with multiple facilities, then you'll need to choose the facility you need to work with. The next step is from the survey list to choose the survey, again based on exit date and that unique identifier, the event ID, and that information is in the email that you receive, so you should very quickly be able to find it within the survey list so you can work on it. You then will see the survey detail window that we looked at earlier where you can review the statement of deficiency information. Step 6, for each of the tags, then you will need to enter the plan of correction information and its associated completion date, and then submit that plan of correction to the state agency. And as we talked about, that can be done by individual tag or submitted as a group to the state agency or regional office. Step 8, once that submission occurs, facility users will receive the POC submission email, so you know that you have, or you or someone at your agency has submitted plan of correction information. Step 9, then, is that the state agency will approve the plan of correction, or if not, step 10, he may reject that. The state agency may reject that plan of correction, and you'll need to go in and revise and resubmit the plan of correction at that point if that rejection occurs. Step 11, upon the state agency or regional office approval of the survey's final unapproved tag, then all facility users will receive that final approval email. And again, those are only facility users who are actively enrolled in the ePOC application. And finally, as we saw, you can print the 2567 as a facility right from within that Aspen Web ePOC application and hang it on the wall as needed. In addition, the A form is available for printing. That concludes our ePOC for Providers webinar. We hope that you found it useful and will find the use of the electronic plan of correction system streamlined and simplified for handling and processing your plan of correction information. Thank you.